now as we speak. This new beat I just made for a song about microorganisms. Yes, microorganisms. And I'm actually mixing the beat, and some people be wondering just how I go about mixing and so forth and so on. I meant to actually start recording a lot earlier, but I forgot to record, so you're kind of catching me jumping in. I've already mixed a few of the instruments, but I guess where I left off at, I had a piano right here, and I'll solo the piano by itself, and I'll play it without the effect. Let's see what we got here. Let's see, bypass, and we'll go here and we'll bypass this too. And this is what I started off with, just this piano right here. And this piano sounded kind of dull to me, so I lightened it up with a little EQ, and this is the EQ settings I used, and I EQ'd it by ear. I didn't sit here and be like, well, it sounds like it's missing the blah 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 kilohertz zone. I just played with the knobs by ear until I got it to sound. Remember, you mix with your ears, not with your eyes. So it went from sounding thin to a little bit thicker, and I'll unmute it and show you the difference. See how right there it sounds dull, but when I EQ it, it brightens it up and adds a little bit more fullness to it. And then I wanted to have that big acoustic feel, so I added a delay. Delays and reverbs are the same thing, just delays are slower, but you can really get the same type of effects in most scenarios. But I like this crystallizer. It's pretty kick butt. But here you go. I put this crystallizer on it to give it that acoustic room feel. The doubler. And so when you're mixing beats, sometimes it's great to visualize what it is that you're actually trying to go for when you're mixing the beat. When I thought of this, I thought of maybe like a Rihanna song or something like that, where there's just a grand piano and somebody sitting there playing it, and it kind of comes off on that vibe. So that's the sound I was trying to achieve. Anyways, then I added in this. Then there was a pad, and I added that pad in, and I EQ'd the pad to work around the piano because the pad sounded kind of dull too. And I put a compressor on the pad because this pad has a lot of swelling to it, so it gets real high and then it gets real low and da da da. So I can compress it so it sounds more even and it doesn't have such a dynamic to it. That doesn't mean a dynamic is a bad thing. It just means I didn't want it in this song. Nonetheless, here it goes. You hear the difference when it's muted. The pad sounds more muffled and low, and if you like that sound, you could have kept it, but I didn't. I wanted the pad to sound brighter because this pad sounds kind of like an organ. And yes, this is a beat I made, if anybody was wondering. Then I added in these little microbots or whatever. All of these sounds I got out of Logic. These are the built-in sounds from Logic. And yes, I'm recording in Pro Tools. I dropped it out of Logic into Pro Tools. Now those microbot sounds, I liked them, so I didn't do anything to them. I just left it just sitting how it was. A lot of mixing is just instinct, you know. If it sounds right, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Then I added in this sound right here. This sound kind of reminds me of like glass or something like that. And all I did was adjust the volume on it. No, I didn't put an effect. I want people to know that you don't have to put an effect on everything just because there's slots for it to have an effect on it. All right, and then now I'm to the drum right now. And if you notice, all I did so far was turn the drum up. I panned it. I got like an auto pan going left and right here. You see it moving. And I got an equalizer on it that I was just about to EQ, and that's where I remembered. That's when I remembered to myself, I'm supposed to be recording this. And what I'm looking for out of this drum right now is I want it to be a little bit brighter on the top end, and just play with the EQ and see if I can get this to really find its pocket. Now if you hear that right there, I brightened it up by just EQing the highs. I'm not going by any rule of thumb. It's just sound. How does that drum sound when I do this to it? And it does sound more like how I want it. In fact, I'll bypass it and unbypass it so you can hear the difference. And yes, that was my computer getting a buffer overload, but it don't matter. It does that crap all the time. It'll be all right. That's what occurs when you're trying to mix on an iMac. This ain't a Mac Pro. Tighten up. So anyways, I like the sound of that. I wanted to sound a little bit more echoey, but I don't know if I'm really going to be able to achieve that. And I'm not going to be pissed off if I don't. So I'm going to try this TL Space. This one built into Pro Tools HD, that is. I think it's built into Pro Tools 9 now because there ain't no more Pro Tools HD. This is actually Pro Tools 8 HD I'm using. But let's see. And you see how that gives it more of an epic feel. So I'm going to turn it down a bit though, because that's a little too much. So I got that drum kind of sounding 80s-ish. If you didn't notice, that's exactly what I was going for. I wanted to sound oversaturated on reverb like a lot of the drums were in the 80s. But that sound actually has, it brings in a certain nostalgia. So that's how I wanted this beat to sound when I did it. Might turn it down a little bit though. And this is just a little sizzle. This is like a little snake sound or something I threw in there. It adds to the ambiance of the sound. Put you in that environment. And with this snake sound, of course, I would want that to like be moving all around and sound all creepy. So I put a pan on it and I got it just moving kind of in like a non-rhythmic kind of back and forth as you see right here on the screen. And if you heard that, then you can tell. I'm not going to add any effects to it because I feel like that'll overdo it. I feel like if I added effects to that sound, it will take it out of what I want. You don't want everything to sound reverby because it won't give it a three-dimensional feel. Some sounds you want to be dry, other ones you might want to be real wet. It all depends on what you're going for. And right here I got a kick and snare on the same track, which I usually never do. Let me rename that kick snare so I can remember that they're on the same track. I got a kick and the snare on the same track, which I actually highly advise against doing. You actually probably want to separate the kick and the snare. This is it right here. You probably want to separate them on different tracks, but because of the type of, these are low-fi kick snares, meaning low fidelity. They sound like low quality kick snares, but they're intentional. So I put them on the same track because what I'm going to do with them is not going to be orthodox. So check it out. Notice I'm not paying attention to my meters. I'm mixing with my ears. I know some of you might be looking like, man, he's 6 dB over Unity and so forth and so on. Well, I'm mixing with my ears, not my eyes. I'm listening to the song. And if it gets distorted, I'll hear it. And even if it does get a little distorted, I'll still keep mixing and then just turn the whole mix down a notch. And it'll get rid of the distortion, but you'll still have that fatness. And if you notice, that snare and that kick sound real dry and lo-fi sounding, but that's how I want it because I feel like that style fits this beat or whatever. Let's go over to the pad now. Now I gotta mute this pad because this pad can't be played at the same time because they're actually playing two different chords and they clash. think I'm gonna take this compressor and slide it over. I put that same compressor because that compressor only served it was a functional compressor. I only use it for one function to level out my pads so they don't have such a big range, dynamic range to them as far as fluctuating dramatically in volume. And really all I did was open up the H comp and went to the preset tight vocal, because most pads are, the pad that I'm trying to use is in the vocal range. This pad's a little bit lower, but I don't care because it's still a compressor and it's not a frequency sensitive compressor. It sounds a little cluttered, not cluttered, but it sounds a little boggy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna put a short delay on it and actually spread the sound out. And all I did was open up short delay. I put one at 0, one mix on one side, 0% the other at 100, and you do that to any sound, it'll spread it all the way out. The only disadvantage to that, because you got to give to get, and when you do that, you lose the power out of the sound, but you gain a tremendous amount of space, like as far as width in the sound. And then of course this is a synthesizer strings. These strings are doing the same thing as the pad. So let's turn these up. And these are synth strings, so synth strings naturally sound a little faded. So what I'm gonna do is actually tweak it up a little bit with a little high EQ. So that the sound sticks out more. Let's see. Let's put the piano back in. If you notice, I had to stop this pad when this pad was playing, because these two instruments, they clash. I'm not finna try to EQ them because that's foolish, because that's not why they're clashing. They're clashing because I'm playing two different chord progressions on each pad set, and it's for different parts of the song. In fact, I know you probably asked me, well then why the hell on this part of the song is it playing at the same time? That's probably because I didn't mute it. My bad. Please don't judge me. Let's see what we got here. I can mute that there too. Here I can probably mute that. Let's see. And all I gotta do is make sure during the whole song, put the two pads together. They up here at the top two rows. As long as they're not playing at the same time, I can have everything playing. The vocals are right here, but I'm not gonna do the vocals in this one. So anyways, that's what I did. It's a very simple beat. It ain't much to it. It's a very eclectic beat. If you didn't notice, it's stylish. It's very stylish. It's not your normal boom boom tick tick drop it low. It's actually got a lot more style to it. But anyways, I told everybody I'd start putting up what I do when I mix songs or whatever, because a lot of people had questions. And if you notice, not that many effects. 3 of the sounds have no effects. All I did was mess with the volume knob, and in this one I didn't mess with the volume knob at all. And on the other ones, it's just EQs and compressors and delays. That's it. It doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot, it's just all in knowing where you want to go and so forth and so on. Anyway, this boy B.Rice. Hit me up. Let me know something.